Welcome to CCN Midday News. I am your host, Catherine Christian, and here are some of your top stories for today, the 9th of June. Trump's job approval falls amidst racial unrest, while Biden jumps to a 14-point lead. A sports talk host endorsed black legislator pulled over while campaigning against Mitch McConnell. Lindsey Graham's challenger, Jaime Harrison, promises a new South in close Senate race. Is Lindsey Graham about to have a problem? Virginia man who plowed his truck into Black Lives Matter crowd is the head of the state's Ku Klux Klan. U.S. Army open to considering removal of Confederate leaders named from bases. And Jeff Bezos shares a profanity-laced email from a customer angry about the Amazon CEO's support for the Black Lives Matter movement. And the white woman arrested for spitting on a black protester during Confrontation in Wisconsin. Let's get to the news. President Donald Trump's overall job approval rating has dropped 7% points over the past few months, according to a survey released on Monday that also showed him trailing former Vice President Joe Biden by 14 points ahead of the general election in November. The CNN poll showed that 38% of respondents say that they approve of the way Donald Trump is handling his job as president, and the majority, 57%, indicate that they disapprove. Trump's approval rating, his worst in CNN polling since January of 2019, has dismantled considerably since May, when 45% of Americans said that they approved of his job as president. His disapproval among Americans has increased 6 percent points from 51% in May. Trump's electoral fortunes have also apparently floundered over the past few weeks. Among registered voters, polling at 41%, they would be more likely to cast their ballot for him compared to the 55% of voters who said that they would prefer Biden, the Democratic presidential nominee. Here's my commentary on the polling data. I don't necessarily always wholeheartedly run with the polling data because it has a way of, as we learned in 2016, of kind of calming the nerves of the public, thinking that, he could never win because the polling says this, and then actual numbers of Americans go out and vote, and those who don't vote shows a different story. So, whatever. It's I guess, okay, nice to see that some people are actually waking up to see that maybe he's not as presidential as they thought. Whoop-de-doo. But at the end of the day, go out and vote. November is where it matters. Like I said, I don't really pay too much attention to the polls because the polls are usually put in place to ease the nation's worries about the current situation, and the actual numbers matter in November. So just go out and vote, make sure you're registered, and that's how you make a change. Progressives rebel against conservative Democrat Amy McGough with the hashtag Booker beats Mitch, supporting her primary opponent, Senate Representative Charles Booker, in the race to dethrone Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky. The Kentucky radio sports host Matt Jones also decided to run against McConnell, but he's come out for Booker instead. He told his 200,000 plus Twitter audience in a video that they should vote for whomever they wanted on whichever side of the aisle they want. After a lot of thought, I'm voting for Charles Booker, he said. He went on to explain that he watched Booker for a while and has been impressed by his leadership role he's taken over the past several weeks of unrest. Last December, Booker was on a listening tour across the state of Kentucky when he was pulled over by police for looking suspicious. We were on the road here in East Kentucky, leaving my neighborhood in the West End, and our team was pulled over. Booker explained the officer said that we looked suspicious and that we didn't belong here, and what were we doing? In March, Mitch McConnell whined that it wasn't fair that he was being attacked by his Democratic opponents because of the corona. Okay, here's my quick commentary on this story. In order to make the change that we want to see, we have to start putting people in places of power where they can make a difference, where people don't have to keep telling us where they think we belong and where we don't belong. And we need to start voting people in places in which we know they belong, because they have our agenda and our best interests as far as what we're trying to push forward. Granted, not saying that everybody of color does, but there are places in which the importance of having someone who looks like us, representing us in those places of power, like Senate Majority Leaders and the Speaker of the House, those influential spots need to be people that represent the people and not just those that represent special interest groups. So anybody in Kentucky, I implore you to really look into this candidate, because Mitch McConnell is nothing but more of the same. Definitely a Trumper, and he needs to go. I don't think he has any place in Congress, let alone the Senate anymore. His time is done. His tenure is over. It's time for a change, and a whole new change of different leadership that represents the people, that looks like the people that actually live here, and not just the few that can afford to. I will also add too that if you don't live in the state, you can still donate to the person's campaign. So a lot of times, if you see a candidate that you are interested in, that you like their platform that they're giving, and you want to see them elevated to a place of power as Congress, being in the House of Representatives or the Senate, you can still donate to the person's campaign. So please don't feel like because you don't live in the state that you don't have a way to contribute to their movement. You surely do, and I employ us all to do that. We have to move this agenda forward and change the world, and it starts, by a small step, and you can make great leaps. So please. And Jaime Harrison is confident that South Carolina is ready to end the Lindsey Graham era by electing a young black Democrat to Congress. At the end of the day, I do believe that we are starting to see the emergence of what I call the New South. The 44-year-old Senate candidate told News Weekly on a phone interview, "This New South is bold, it's inclusive, and it's diverse." In Harrison's mind, this includes a new visionary leadership, starkly different from the previous tenant of the seat, one that was held by segregationist Strom Thurmond for more than this seat has not gone to a Democrat since 1950. In fact, the state hasn't elected a Democrat in any statewide election in over 14 years. Another good sign for Harrison is that the South is a region that is becoming more diverse, with more African Americans and Latino voters. While white residents still make up at least 64% of South Carolina's population, the number of registered non-white voters surpassed 1 million for the first time in the state's history early this year. Harrison, he's working to build a border coalition of voters than candidates before him. However, he is still going up against one of the most powerful lawmakers on Capitol Hill and one of the President Donald Trump's closest ally. Graham, a 3-term incumbent, comfortably won his last re-election efforts by a 10-point margin. He has more cash on hand than Harrison, the backing of the Republican establishment, and a complete and total endorsement from Trump. Plus, the president's name at the top of the ticket in November is likely to boost Graham in a state that voted for Trump by 14 points in 2016. I will say this in my commentary in regards to Jaime Harrison. I think Lindsey Graham, definitely, he's an enabler of President Donald Trump, the same person who is such a flip-flopper, unloyal, because before Trump had won the nomination, Lindsey Graham was he's a bigot, he's a xenophobe, he's a this, he's a that. And then all of a sudden, once he won the nomination, even though John McCain was his best friend, he allowed President Donald Trump to defame his quote-unquote best friend's name and said nothing in defense about him, and he kisses Donald Trump's behind, and I think just someone like that definitely does not need to be in charge of any kind of anything when it comes to anything in government. And we definitely need to send a signal to the rest of these United States that it can be done. I know they like to throw the numbers out there and discourage people that he has more money. Lindsey Graham has more money than Harrison, so it's really no need. But let me to remind you that the Clintons had far more money than the Obamas did, and you see what happened. So if you put your mind to it and we put our resources together, again, even if you don't live in the state, you can still donate to the campaign, that we can really make a change that is effective by taking these people out and putting people in that represent us, that look like us, that can move the wheels of change. But we have to get involved and have to infiltrate the system. And this is the best way to do so. So that's just my thoughts on that. Around the time that some South Carolinians were sitting down to their evening meals on Thursday night, a gay porn star by the name of Sean Harding fired off a tweet that set tongues a-wagging across the state. There's a homophobic Republican senator who is no better than Donald Trump, who keeps passing legislation that is damaging to the LGBT and minority communities. Harding tweeted, "Every sex worker I know has been hired by this man, wondering if enough of us speak out, if that could get him out of office." Considering that there is only one member of the U.S. Senate whose initials quickly turn us to the U.S. Senate, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who has been dodging rumors like this for the better part of the last decade. This time, though, the allegations quickly took on a new life of its own. By Friday afternoon, the hashtag Lady G, which is Lindsey Graham's nickname among many male sex workers, was trending on Twitter. So here's my commentary on that. Okay, first of all, I must say, Lady G, hilarious, okay? Lady G, I will not let that down. Every time I see him, I'll thank Lady G from now on. Hey, girl. But anyway, I definitely think that this could be a turning point for him, especially with Donald Trump being an endorser the way that he does. If he feels that there's some weakness to you or something that will tarnish his brand and his name, he may not be the water carrier for you. So if this carries far well into November or before November election time, I think you will see Donald Trump starting to distance himself. I do hope Lady Graham continues on and more of these sex workers come out and expose him for who he is. He has been single for quite a time. He's been known as the single bachelor as far as the Senate is concerned. But there have always been rumors that he dibbled and dabbled into other things. And I mean, it's no surprise a lot of these Republicans who are starkly against the LGBT community and other things are usually the ones participating the most. So it wouldn't be a surprise. But however, I really would like to see where this goes. That's funny. Lady Graham, Lady G. Anyway, that just tickled me. I'm sorry. Over the weekend, a Virginia man was arrested for driving his truck into a crowd of protesters. It has now been revealed that the accused, Harry H. Rogers, is also the head of the Virginia chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. Reported on Monday that Rogers was charged by the police with the attempted malicious wounding, which is a felony, and destruction of property, which is also a felony, and an assault and battery, which is a misdemeanor, after the incident. When he was arrested, Rogers confessed to officers that he is the president of the Ku Klux Klan in the state and claimed that to be the highest ranking member of the Klan that is not in prison. Those who have experienced the attack recall that the vehicle was revving their engines before he drove through the protesters occupying the roadway. No one was seriously injured, however. Now, okay, here's some commentary on this. That, to my eyes and my estimation, would be an attempted murder because somebody could have lost their lives. And then what would we be saying? And he felt comfortable enough to admit to the officers that he was the president of the Klan. As to what he thought it was going to get him some kind of cushy deal. I think a lot of these people who do stuff like this would be attempted murder. You need to go to jail for a long time, or even probably even sit on death row for attempting to murder people. Then maybe you'll think twice, because right now all he's thinking about is being able to go to jail, have 3 meals a day, and sit amongst other people who feel the same way about him, who feel the same way about the rest of society, which is a cushiony job. So I really don't see, in his point, probably what he thinks the punishment is, because he gets to stay in jail and be around people who share his beliefs and continue to commune with whatever family he has, through letters or what have you. So I just think that the hate crime, they need to up their game and really put some things on the book, just like they went hard on communities of color with drugs. They need to go just as hard on these hate crime attacks on people. They need to definitely make some harsher sentences to where in which it makes people think again about committing crimes like this. U.S. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy and Secretary of Defense Mark Esper is said to be open to holding a bipartisan conversation about renaming nearly a dozen major bases and installations that bear the name of Confederate military commanders, according to an Army official. The official said that McCarthy believes that he has the potential authority to literally rename the installations, that there would be a need for consultation with the White House, Congress, and state and local government. In a statement on Monday, the Army confirmed that McCarthy and Esper are open to a bipartisan discussion on the topic, but added that each Army installation is named for a soldier who holds a significant place in our military history. Army installations named after Confederate leaders include Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Fort Hood in Texas, and Fort A.P. Hill in Virginia. It's real funny to me how some people like to hold up certain things to be historic and other things to be treasonous. Let's be very clear. The Confederate Army was fighting against the United States. So I don't even understand why it's celebrated the way that it is. You don't see Germany celebrating the rise of Adolf Hitler. I just don't get why it's so hard to grasp the concept of that. It was a whole civil war. They were trying to overthrow the United States government. Where in which does that need to be celebrated to the point where they have monuments and things of that nature? If you want all that, make a museum, put it all in there. And that's the only place it should be, if it should be shown at all. Because it's funny how this president will always call somebody's actions treasonous, like he says the things about former President Barack Obama. But nobody seems to bat an eyelash that throughout our history, they were fighting the U.S. government mostly so the rich slave owners can keep their slaves. And some of the poor whites just didn't feel it necessary to have freed slaves around them. So they just jumped in the fight just cause. I don't know, I just find this to be ridiculous that we still have this discussion even now to the point where it's considered. Because there should be no consideration. They should have been done. They should have never been put up to begin with. And that should have been the end of that. But, it's different when it's the others. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos shares a profanity-laced email he received from an angry customer in response to the company's outspoken support of the Black Lives Matter movement. I was placed in order with your company when I discovered the statement of support for the Black Lives Matter, said the email published by Bezos to his personal Instagram page. I canceled my order, and I know for a fact I won't be the only one. In response, Bezos addressed the man directly and said he was the kind of customer I'm happy to lose. The Amazon founder and CEO Jeff Bezos shared a profanity-laced email that he said he received from an angry customer, a person he described as the kind of customer he was happy to lose. The email, apparently sent to Bezos from a man named Dave, whose last name was redacted, criticized the billionaire for supporting the Black Lives Matter. Okay, why I applaud Jeff Bezos for taking a stance for the movement against police brutality, and also taking a notable stance with a customer losing business in that regard. I'm not going to repeat the note. I will put the note here in one of these boxes up here, and it'll also be on my community wall so you can read it at your leisure, but I will not give that person any airtime out of my mouth. But I will say, like I said, kudos to doing that. But how about you use that 19% increase that you made during the pandemic and help pay for the medical fees and costs to your drivers? How about you do that as well instead of, this? Because of course, you don't want to lose no business, so you kind of figured out who would be which would be the bigger loss here. And if not, and if it was actual something morally that you felt you needed to do, kudos to you on that. But there's just a lot of other stuff that's a little more questionable to me as well, that I could be like, okay, because everybody will do something because the spotlight is on them to do something, to say something. But it's what you don't do when the cameras are on, and what you say when the cameras are not looking at you or the reporters are not around. That really makes the difference. So I'll be curious to see that, but thanks. And as the story I reported on yesterday, the white woman who parked her car in the path of an anti-racism march and then spat on a black protester who asked her to move it was arrested. The Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reported battery and disorderly conduct charges against Stephanie Raskin, age 64, of Shorewood, Wisconsin, will be referred to the district attorney, the police said. Meanwhile, there are calls for Raskin, who is an attorney, to lose her license over Saturday's incident in Sherwood. Her spitting as protesters urged her to get back in her car and move it was captured on video and shared widely on social media. Raskin has not made a public statement about the matter. And for those of you who may have missed it, here's the video. Yeah, so here's my thoughts on this barbarian of a woman. I believe that she should lose her license. It was highly egregious and disgusting to spat on someone. And I'll say it again, I said it yesterday, that it's funny how they like to call us all kinds of animals and barbarians and all of these things. And they do the most egregious things and egregious acts, as like spitting on someone. And how does that make you, like, what kind of savage are you? That woman should lose everything. If we're gonna do a cancel culture, then hey, let's start canceling these people. Maybe they'll think twice about their livelihood and their jobs. Because I would cancel her ass in a second, because that was totally disgusting. But again, that's just my thoughts on her barbaric ass. And once again, thank you for watching CCN Midday News. Hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also hit that notification button so you will never miss another news update. Have a great day. Peace.